Hello and welcome to Tight Lines. It's all too often, but quite rightly said, that our sport doesn't have enough youngsters coming into it or enough female anglers at all. Well, this week in the bothy we have someone who is very definitely a female angler and a very good one, who spends much of her time introducing youngsters and more women to fly fishing. Lucy Bowden also happens to work in the marketing department of probably the most famous fishing tackle company in the world. She really has the lot. We're hearing about Lucy's fishing and getting her advice over the next hour, as well as seeing her in action on a coaching session with one of her young students on the very chilly banks of Winnielock Fishery in the southeast of Scotland. We'll also get some great winter match fishing tips from World Championship individual silver medalist Steve Hemingway, as he demonstrates the tactics to keep catching in tough conditions. And in Fishery Focus, I'll have all the information on the methods and baits that are currently working for anglers of all disciplines and the weather that's in store. Well, it's good to see you, Lucy. It's lovely to have you down. Thanks so much for coming in.
It's great to be back, Keith.
Good, you've come a long way, haven't you?
I have. I've come from, well, near Newcastle, really? So came down on the plane this morning.
Decent journey, though?
Absolutely fine.
Excellent.
Bit of chaos around London, apart from that.
No,
fine.
It's always like that here.
That's true.
So, how's your fishing been? Have you been out much this... Well, have we had a winter?
We haven't really had a winter, Keith, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't been out an awful lot. Not as much as I'd hoped to have been out. Roll on the spring, I say. Roll on the spring.
Do you get out fishing for yourself, or is most of your fishing involving introducing people?
A lot of my fishing is introducing people into the sport these days. I try and, you know, really set dates and go fishing for myself, but it's not always easy.
You like a bit of salmon fishing as well?
I do a little bit of salmon fishing. I prefer trout, because that's what I've done more of.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, salmon's good as well.
And do you prefer wild or commercially stocked, or aren't you bothered?
In terms of trout? Or
yeah, trout, yeah.
I don't mind either. I do more of the stocked because when I'm coaching it's easy and you want them to catch, Keith, as you know. But yeah, either.
A bit more accessible.
A bit more accessible.
Fantastic. And now Lucy's taken us fishing a few times over the years. We've joined her on Fishing for Everyone events and seen just how much fun they are. However, when you've got a budding young angler on a very chilly Scottish loch, you need to be a pretty special teacher to keep them going. A couple of weeks ago we joined Lucy and budding fly angler Ruby Wharf at Winnielock for a bit of advice and instruction.
So Ruby, what's the most important thing I've ever taught you when we go fly fishing?
Hats.
Thank you.
And glasses.
Perfect. Well done. So Ruby, decision of the day. Which fly do we go for?
I would say the pheasant tail nymph.
Yeah, pheasant tail. Any ideas why? Any thoughts?
It might sink a bit more because the sun's gone in a bit now.
Yeah, agreed. Let's give it a go. See how we get on, yeah? Now, Rubes, remember what we said about always letting the fly sink. Okay, so the idea is you cast in and you want the fly to reach the depth of the fish. Okay, so what I would always do when we start fishing, we come to the side of the water, we cast in, count to 5, then start retrieving. Okay, next cast, count to 10, 15, 20, and so on and so forth, until you reach the depth the fish are at. Now Ruby, this time of year the fish are very lethargic, they're moving quite slow, so what we need to be doing is retrieving very slowly. Do you remember the figure of 8?
Yeah.
Remember that? Perfect. Just nice and slow. Oh, gentleman's got one. Now remember what we said, Ruby, when we pull the fly from the water, instead of going straight into what we call the wiggle, what we're going to do is the roll cast or semi-roll cast. So you bring the fly out of the water and round to the side. You know the roll cast? Yeah, perfect. Well done. So the idea is there, Ruby, that when you bring the fly out of the water, often a fish will follow it out, and if you're doing a wiggle, obviously there's no line, the line isn't taut enough to be able to strike, is it? So that ensures you don't miss a take. Okay, Rube, so just nice and slow, steady retrieve there. You're just waiting for that take, aren't you? Lovely, lovely, lovely. Ruby, we're not having an awful lot of luck here, and I'm not seeing a lot rise. So I propose that we move onto the next peg and see if we can catch anything there. Do you want to wind that in for me? Right, Ruby, let's give here a go, shall we? Okay, so I suggest we cast out, give it 5 minutes or so with this fly, and then I think we should change the fly. Just watch that wind. Not bad, not bad. Look how close that was. Good, just keep it nice and straight with your retrieve. Good. They're teasing you, Ruby. Well, Ruby, we're not having much luck, are we, really? It's not happening. Now, we've seen quite a few fish rise, so I'm wondering if we're just a bit too far deep, just a bit too far down. So let's retrieve the fly in and we'll change the fly. All right, so let's go. I suggest something like I think a hare's ear, Ruby. I think that one there would work. Let's give that a go. So aim to go straight out to where those fish were rising before, and obviously now we're a little bit higher up in the water. So you can do it. It's just practice. That's it. Remember the final cast, you've got to really tap it out. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Oh, there was action. Oh my goodness, he looks a fantastic fish. Just keep some pressure on that rod. Hare's ear. Hare's ear worked.
No, he's not taking it, he's just going down.
Is he? God, oh, it's a rainbow, Ruby. Oh, actually, it could be a blue trout. I can't quite see. It's rainbow. Beautiful. Lovely. Well done.
Oh, he's gone.
Gone? Well,
He's
well
gone.
done anyway. You're fine. Well done. Right, Ruby, what I think we should do is I think we should move further up the bank there. I've seen a few fish rise around there. You feeling anything, Ruby? Any tugs on the end of that line?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Right, Ruby, I suggest we now look at hauling. It is a bit more advanced. You certainly won't get it first time. So if we swap places.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect. And what I'll do, Ruby, is I am going to single haul, and rather than tell you straight away what I'm doing, I'm going to see if you can pick up what I'm doing. All right? It's my left hand you want to be watching. You tell me what I was doing there.
You were pulling the line once the rod reached 1 o'clock.
Perfect. Absolutely spot on. Right, Rubes, I need you to take this rod off me. I'll just make sure he's hooked. Right, Rubes, take the... You got it, hon? Just keep the rod nice and high. I'll just hold the rod up there for you. If he comes towards you, you know what to do. You just pull some outline in, all right? Perfect. Well done. Right, I'm going to let go of the bottom of the rod.
Okay.
You still got it? You happy?
Yep.
Now I'm going to grab the net. Well done. Lovely rainbow, that. Just keep him nice and high. Again, if he wants to go, because when he sees the net, Ruby, he'll want to run. Nice fish. Keep that rod nice and high, Rooster. Nice. Seen the net, Ruby. He'll want to run. Oh! Close. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well done. What's the first thing we do when we're going to release a fish, Ruby?
Get the hook out of its mouth.
If you hold the net for me. Let's get hold of the hook. That's it. Perfect. Hook's out. We're just going to let him go, Ruby, so keep him in the water at all times. I'm just going to lower the front of the net. He's swimming the wrong way. I'm not sure if he knows which way home is. There we go. Well done! Well, it's been a very difficult day. It's been extremely windy, but at least we haven't blanked. Have you enjoyed yourself, Ruby?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's been great.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Time for a cup of tea.
Yep.
And there it is, the good old killer fly, the gold rib hairs, the
the
gold
one.
bead, gold. It's amazing because it's like it replicates so many things, and it's that buggy look, and especially on catch and release fisheries where they see so many lures and they get a bit spooky with them. Something sort of natural like that can work, can't it?
Traditional pattern.
Yeah. I've got to say, Ruby looks like she might have been a bit on the chilly side.
Keith, it was freezing. It was absolutely freezing. And I'll be honest, if I was going out coaching, I would never go out for such a long day as we did. Obviously, we had a crew behind us, but it was freezing.
Yeah. It must be frustrating as well because she tried really hard and she was getting those little
She was
nips.
getting knocks, yes.
Why were they not taking, do you think?
I think it was a couple of things. I think it was Ruby and I have been, I've been coaching Ruby for about 4 years now, and she's just getting onto that stage where she needs to cast a wee bit further. So when I took over the rod, a couple of times I did that, I could cast it just slightly further than her, and also the retrieve I was using was a figure of 8, where she was just doing the long pulls. So it was slower. It was a slower retrieve.
I've noticed that so often. I mean, I will naturally figure of 8, and if I can't catch anything doing that, then I'll go into to jerks. And it's just, I think it's just the way the fly moves, and when it moves like that, sometimes they will bash it. I've watched them in clear water. You watch them, but when that figure of 8, sometimes they just can't resist it.
Beginners can struggle with that figure of 8 as well. It's quite something to learn. It's a technique you have to get your head round, certainly.
Welcome back. I've been joined in the body by fly angler and coach Lucy Bowden, and I managed to open her fly box. Now, Lucy, I know you cheated a bit because this isn't the one you had in that little film, was it?
It's not, Keith.
No, it's a bit tidier.
It's a lot tidier. My fly box is not particularly tidy, just like my handbag. It's not tidy.
I'm not looking in there. Now, we've got a couple of pictures that I don't think they're all coaching days. Now, that one's a little bit special.
It is.
Lucy Supergirl.
Indeed. This was, this was a charity event I held in April last year, and it was Fancy Dress.
Yeah.
And it was for a local charity, and the idea was that everyone was to dress up. However, on the day, there was me and 5 others who actually dressed up.
I've been that soldier.
It was horrendous. The weather, I mean, you can see the sky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But did you catch any fish? That's the thing.
We did. We had a great day.
You personally in that camouflage outfit? No.
No. I stayed like that the majority of the day. I was frozen by the end of it.
Now, this is an exciting picture for me to see because there's a group of interested anglers to be just getting some advice. How often do you hold I'd call that a clinic. How often do you do that sort of thing?
Well, through the fishing club, we have a monthly event every month.
This is your Fishing for Everyone.
This is Fishing for Everyone. We hold a monthly event, but that day was a specific ladies' fishing day where ladies from all around came together at a venue, and we had a great day. It was great fun.
And is it really fishing for everyone, or is it fishing for everyone as long as they normally wear skirts and nylons?
Primarily. But also we have youngsters as well. We don't discriminate against the youngsters.
Excellent,
so.
That's good. And you can see there's not youngster
lovely.
Discrimination in action there,
Yeah, that was in the summer last year. It was a beautiful evening, and these 3 were desperate to have a go, so I took them out and we had a fantastic day.
It is, I think it's quite important to get youngsters fishing to enjoy it, not to endure it.
That's what it's all about.
And I think sometimes, I mean, I've got quite strong opinions about this, which not like me, as you know.
No, of course not.
So many people have said to me, the most important thing to do is get them to catching a fish. Well, I think the most important thing is to get them to aspire to catching a fish. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Catching fish is a bonus, Keith.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they call it fishing, not catching. It's about enjoying it, enjoying your surroundings, and ultimately enjoying what you're doing. Catching the fish is just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I think as well with fly fishing, and I get this. I mean, I didn't start fly fishing until just over 20 years ago, but I still get pleasure from the occasional good cast.
Yes.
You know, because I start off usually casting okay, and it deteriorates during the day. But I think when you see a rising fish and you automatically cover it,
Yes.
I get a sense, even if
it's
the fish
fantastic.
ignores it, I think, why did you ignore that?
Yeah.
You get that aesthetic pleasure from it, didn't you?
I get that when I'm casting, but also when I'm coaching,
especially,
an angler, and they do that. It's just fantastic.
I've got to say, I would be complete garbage as a coach because I've got absolutely
No
zero patience. I mean, when Ruby lost that fish, I'd have had the rod over me knee and I'd have been off over the hill. I'd have been
You
gone.
can't do that when you're coaching. You need to be positive all the time.
I'm positive all the time, positively fed up. Now, I did manage, as I said, to open this beautifully tidy fly box, and there's just a couple of samples. I just want you to explain. Now, this is very much a traditional, classic wet fire pattern. Just tell us about that.
Bibio.
Three-dimensional. When would you use that kind of?
I am going to be honest, my dad uses that fly year round and hardly ever uses anything else.
Really?
So literally year round he'll use that. I mean, I'll use that now, I'll use that in the summer. To be fair, it always catches that fly.
It's a pretty good sort of spidery, terrestrial, anti-type imitation, isn't it? And do you think that's why it works?
I do, and of course you can get it in lots of different versions. So you can get the dry type, you know, and you get the wet. It just always works, that one.
Very interesting.
If in doubt, resort to the Bibio is my
now I'm when in doubt, tie on a damsel.
Oh, right.
It's when all else fails, then on goes the damsel. If that doesn't work, on goes a blue flash damsel. Because
well, I'm Bibio.
That's
well,
there you go. We'll have to have a little competition one day. What else have we got in here that I can have a little? A couple of dries.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting. Let's get this on because it's a little bit different to what we're used to seeing.
That's a different one, isn't it? They're great if you're obviously fishing dry fly on the surface. Keith, the best thing about those is you can see them. I mean, I'm young and, you know, obviously, but don't get us wrong, but, you know, sometimes when it's, you know, the water's moving, it's hard to see dry flies. That one's great.
The number of times, you know, I have to black out the top of my floats when I'm course fishing because black's the clearest colour to see.
That's right.
People paint them white, can't see white.
No,
yellow, I
can't
can't see yellow very well. But that dark colour, and you can also fish that sort of suspended, how it's intended.
That's right.
I also find these are a great wake fly. If you cast out and just that slow figure of 8 again across the surface, and especially if you can fish
great.
2 flies, they call it New Zealand style.
They do.
I think we have another dropper tied on the bottom of the fly. That I've caught on that so many times.
It's a great fly.
Yeah,
I love it.
This might not be last of all, but because I want to have a look at the Montana as well. But this
Dawson.
we've a Dawson's olive. Now, I've mentioned this so many times in Fishery Focus, and I think it's the first time we've shown one, and it's sort of like a hybrid damsel, cat's whisker time with the long marabou wing, and this, you know, I mean, what would you say that describes, or do you think it's just a catch-all lure?
I think it's a catch-all lure. Fish it deep down, and it always catches. Always.
Certainly does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's just right. And lastly, ouch, because we haven't had a winter yet, I've not tied one of these on very often, although I've mentioned them a few times. But for a classic winter pattern, especially on a stocked rainbow fishery, the good old Montana, you can probably just see that bit of green in the thorax there.
It's
gold bead, sort of amidships.
It's a good fly, that one.
How would you fish that?
Very cold days, deep down, cold day.
Sinking intermediate line, maybe?
Yeah, but deep down, certainly, yeah.
And nice and really slow again.
Figure of 8.
Figure of 8 again, yeah. Now, this we'll call it a winter. Have you had to vary your tactics over what you would normally do? Because when you are from the northeast, and without being too divisive about the country, it's flipping cold in the northeast.
Freezing.
Yeah.
It is freezing. Like I say, I haven't been out an awful lot over the winter, Keith. What with one thing and the other, but I like to try lots of different patterns when I do go out fishing. I like to go through my box. I know my box is a mess, but I know where everything is in that box, like my handbag, everything. And I like to vary it. And you know something, if I am catching on one fly and I keep catching, I'll change my fly because it gets boring if you keep catching.
I'm so glad.
consistently.
Well, see, when you can fish places like Winnie, where you can catch and release,
Yes.
that's fine.
Yes.
And you've got a lot more catch and release fisheries in the northeast.
That is true.
I presume because the waters are a bit bigger and quite a lot colder, and rainbows will go back much better in cold water than they will in warm water.
They will, yes.
And down here, the fisheries tend to be smaller. But we've got the big reservoirs, of course, which allow catch and release.
Yes.
But the small waters won't allow catch and release for overcrowding reasons more than anything else.
Of course.
So it is more difficult then, because what I don't like to do is fish my ticket out.
Oh, no.
You buy 4 fish,
Yeah.
a 4-fish ticket. You've got to go home after 20 minutes.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
it's such a shame when that does happen.
Yeah.
But no, I like to change my fly regularly and try different tactics, and it's fun. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about. It's about having fun. So.
And of course, we've got April the 1st is coming up soon. The river's open then.
That's right.
How much wild river fishing have you got near you?
I've got a wee bit round me. I mean, I don't do a lot on the rivers, Keith, I'll be honest. I tend to stick to the reservoirs with the ladies fishing and with the kids. It's more accessible. We've got the facilities, but there's plenty of it there. If you want it, it's there.
And I think we've got lulled into the 4th century security. Every fish, they all start at £2 now. And of course, on rivers, sometimes a pound fish is a real achievement.
That's right. Yes, it is. Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
It's good fun.
If you had to choose, what would you choose? Browns, rainbows, wild or commercial?
Brown trout, wild.
Would you?
Definitely.
See, I knew you had it in you. What a great idea. And just when you can trick a wild fish that spent its life living off,
yeah.
it makes such a difference, doesn't
I'm a
it?
traditionalist through and through,
There you
know,
go.
Keith.
I knew you were.
Best way to be.
Many of the Scottish rivers have had a reasonable start to their respective salmon seasons, but there's been an awful lot of water in some of them, and plugs and spinners have done the business over fly on the most part. Rainbow and stock brownie fishing goes on though, and once again there'll be some small hatches this weekend, so just don't go all out with the lures. If the wind isn't blowing too bad, try a floating line with a black buzzer or pheasant tail nymph, maybe a hare's ear as we saw Lucy using, and let the breeze take the line in a slow arc. If it's a bit too drafty, fish an intermediate with as slow a retrieve as possible. Now, we were just saying there, Lucy, you enjoy fishing buzzers and nymphs, and as we saw in the film, that gold-ribbed hare's ear can be a fascinating tactic. And I don't know if you use it a lot, but I love to fish those, like I said there, letting the wind just take the line round in an arc. Did you try that on the day?
We did, letting it drift round, and like you say, the arc, it's
Still
great.
no action. You just got to keep just putting a little mend.
Amend every time. I mean, we struggled off and on.
Yeah, it was strange because it looked like, apart from that wind, and wind is the
It
killer.
was very windy, and actually the film doesn't show how windy it actually
It never
was
does.
on the day. It was very windy. And it was cold. It was a cold wind
cold.
across the water.
I could
Yeah,
see
it was
that.
cold.
I've quite often taken pictures of windy days when I've been out on
and
boats, and it doesn't look so bad. But is that the same hare's ear
It's
as
the
you were
same
using?
one. Weighted.
Little gold bead there at the front.
Yeah.
And it's like a pheasant tail. It's one of those just general imitatives, isn't
It
it?
is, yeah.
Looks like so many different things that are hatching
Yeah.
through the water.
Figure of 8 was the trick in the end.
Do you know, I use that so often, that figure of 8
Yeah.
retrieve over the strip
Nice and
pull.
slow.
I'm just having another little delve in here as well, because now this is something.
Buzzings.
I just love my buzzer fishing.
Yeah.
And you think, well, how is a fish going to see that in that wide expanse of water? But again, in gin
do.
clear water, I've seen so many fish following these. And I'd like to think that they follow them because you're pulling them too fast. And if you can get them just to hang,
Yeah.
that can be such a devastating
Slow
tactic.
down. Yeah.
But what about, where do you sit on the sort of bung situation? Are you into using sight indicators and bungs?
I'm not, Keith. I don't. I'm quite traditional in my tactics, if I'm honest. I don't tend to use them. The only time I will use them if a beginner's struggling. If they're struggling, you know, when the fish takes or nibbles almost and they don't strike quick enough, I often find an indicator would work there. But I'm not a massive advocate.
Do you do much boat
personally.
fishing?
I don't do an awful lot. No, it's more bank stuff I
Yeah.
do, wading out. Not really.
See, the thing is, when you're fishing from a boat, and I've done this loads of times, and I love fishing the hang. When you've cast, you've had your retrieve, you're keeping up, so you're fishing your buzzers static, and you get your top dropper on the surface and just leave it there. And the number of times, that's when you get your take.
Yeah,
and
you do.
That's
You
so
do.
difficult to replicate from the bank, isn't it, without using a bung?
It is, you're right, yeah.
What would you do in those sort of situations where you lift the fly out and you see that swirl at the last second? What do you do then?
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I tend to just cast out and try the same method again, and really focus in on the water and what's going on, and try not make the same mistake again.
You can bring it out just too soon, can't
You can. It's
I
very
noticed that you said to Ruby as well in the film about the wiggle.
Wiggle.
No,
Yes.
I didn't see much wiggling going on. What does the wiggle entail?
The wiggle is, so basically when you're letting more line out to go into either your overhead cast or your roll cast. When Ruby was retrieving, she was retrieving her fly, and then basically when the line would get so far in, she would then go into a wiggle. Well, what I was trying to explain was if a fish was following that fly, if you go into a wiggle, a fish takes, you've got no chance, really. So what I was saying is just sort of pull the rod to the side, bring the fly out of the water, and check there's no follow.
And then you roll cast back.
Then you roll
cast.
cast.
That's so important, getting that roll cast right. Just gives you that bit of friction on the water so you can get some line out on the back cast
and then
as
go
well.
into your overhead.
Yeah, I noticed that. Do you think, on looking at Ruby's casting, and I hate being critical about casting because I'm no good myself, do you think she was just coming forward a bit quick?
She was.
I know it's difficult because you had a high bank behind,
She was. We had a very high vertical bank directly behind her. But it's just practice, Keith.
Yeah.
You know, Ruby has been fishing, really fly fishing, 4 years, and she hadn't been out recently. So really, she was getting back into it. And it's just things we can work on this year. So, yeah, she'll be fine. She'll get there.
We spoke about wild brownies, and I mean, this is a bit classic, on the classic side. You've got the lovely wooden landing net.
It's beautiful,
and
isn't it?
Gorgeously spotted brownie. Is that from one of your local rivers?
It's not, no.
Really?
I'm actually very heavily layered up because it was a cold day that day. But I was actually in Tuscany fishing in Italy.
In Italy?
In Italy.
Wow.
Year before last, so 2012. And that's a beautiful brown trout. That was the biggest one I'd caught. But Keith, it wasn't about size. It wasn't. It was about how beautiful they were, the fun, the enjoyment. Had a fantastic holiday.
And tricking a wild fish to take something that's made up of a bit of fur and feather. And it's funny because, you know, we think of Italy as being hot and the water being too warm for trout. I've fished in Granada once, in Spain. I was course fishing, and they took me to this Rio Frio, frozen river, where there's a trout, or ice river.
Wow.
There's a trout farm. And you think, it's Granada, it's 80-odd degrees. And there's this little river with big rainbows in it. And you can go into the trout farm and see where they've dammed off the bit of river where they actually keep the trout in the river and bring them on in there and then release them upstream and downstream. It's incredible because we just don't think of that. And I've seen wild brownies in Portugal as well, up in the north, you know, at Porto, that way. Yeah, it's amazing. Are you getting abroad anywhere this year?
Not sure this year, possibly, but I'm not sure yet.
And will you be taking your fly rod if you do?
Of course, always do, wherever I go.
I think you deserve to be walking from a nice coral sand beach, maybe casting a fly for a bonefish.
Yes, that would be nice.
You won't need quite so many layers
That's
there.
true.
That's it for today. A reminder, you can find all sorts of features on our website. You can follow us on Twitter as well. You might have seen some images this afternoon. And please keep your young angler photos coming in via email. Thanks for coming in again, Lucy.
Thank
it's been
you very
such
much.
a pleasure to see you. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, next week, the focus is on carp fishing. And my guest will be carp angler, author and artist Gareth Fairham, one of the carp scene's top names. Join us at 6:30 on Sky Sports 3. That's next week's show with guest Gareth Fairham, 6:30, Sky Sports 3. If you miss us, don't forget the show's available every week on demand in the Sky Sports section of Catch Up, as well as some other great films from past programmes, so check it out. Hope the weather's kind to you this weekend. Take care and tight lines.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Watch all 6 Sky Sports channels on your mobile and online.